Well, hi. Today is Friday, March 13th, 2026. I'm Todd Studer, and this is Morning Coffee. Well, at first I thought, how did we end up with another Friday the 13th back to back? Well, it's easy. When you have 28 days in February and it shows up then, it's coming again the following month. But I'm not really all that superstitious. Just don't tell anybody I said that, okay? I want to again say thank you. Wednesday night, I had an opportunity to speak to a networking group, and there were some fairly well known names in the community in that group, and got an opportunity to tell a little bit about my history, about what we're doing now. And I thought that, maybe we should do that on this show. And also because it's been a strange week here, and a lot of the interviews that I had scheduled and lined up, their own personal schedule started to become a conflict for that, and they had to reschedule things. And that's happened quite a bit this week. Just kind of seems to come in waves when that happens. So not sure if it's in the water or what's going on. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a history of my background, what has led to me sitting in front of this microphone and looking into this camera right now, and also more about what we are currently doing here and the reasons why we are doing it. So that is going to be today's episode of Morning Coffee. One of the people that was at that networking group Wednesday night was Cindy Schmader with Service Master Restored by Schmader. Cindy's a big supporter of everything that we do here, and we are also a supporter of hers because she is right on the front lines. If you have suffered serious property damage, flooding, fire, smoke, leading to mold, she handles hoarding situations. She can help clean things up if there's a bed bug issue. Cindy can do it all. So if disaster strikes, you're going to want to have her number handy. And Cindy will be the first to tell you she hopes it never does. But if it does, give her a call, 402-339-9911. S&B Country Kennel, one of the top spots in Southwest Iowa when you need to know your dog will receive only the best, with boarding, daycare, grooming, self-washing, training, and even a membership available to a dog park that's over an acre in size. S&B Country Kennel also has rescue dogs. Check with them about adoption possibilities. sbcountrykennel.com. That's country spelled with a K. They're located just west of I-29 on Bungie Avenue, south of Council Bluffs. All right, let's rewind the clock a little bit and tell you where I came from before I tell you where I am now. I've mentioned many times I grew up in Southwest Iowa, and I was kind of a combination of a shy kid and a cocky kid at the same time. And the shyness would come out anytime that I had to be in front of people that I didn't know. And I still deal with that a little bit. I just have been around one of these for so long that it doesn't affect me the way that it used to. But, I was shy as a kid. I was shy as I was turning into an adult. Uh, Talking to people, even if they were talking to me, I didn't know what to say. And it wasn't real comfortable for me to do that. And had a friend of mine, Emmett, if you're watching, miss you, brother. His mother, her name was Brenda, and she noticed that it was actually her mother-in-law that said in a very southern voice, "Well, it's just so nice to meet you, Todd." And I said, "Yeah," and I walked away. And she pulled me aside the next day, and she said, "All right, here's the thing. When someone says nice to meet you, you hold out your hand, and you shake their hand, and you say, 'It's very nice to meet you, too.' That's the correct response." And she worked with me on not only that, but a lot of things. And it was that instruction and that care. I mean, she wasn't my mom, but she just took it upon herself to do it. That led to me sitting here right now. And she passed away a number of years ago, and I still miss her. I wish I could talk to her again and, tell her thank you one more time, because she took the time to teach me how to interact with people. And, she taught me about eye contact. She talked to me about listening, not just waiting for my turn to talk. All of this sound familiar with what I'm doing now, so again, very thankful for her. And that was, 19, 20 years old. I didn't get into a professional setting with speaking until I was 25. And I had started college at a tiny little community college in Iowa Falls called Ellsworth. And the journalism instructor there He did afternoons on the local radio station, and they needed someone to be an announcer on the weekends. Saturday night from 5 to 10, and then Sunday morning from 6 to noon. That was the shift. Now, I've always had the voice, I just didn't have the delivery. I mean, the mechanics were just the raw material, I guess, was there. And people used to say all the time that, oh, you should be on the radio. Well, I didn't know how to get in, and now here was an opportunity to do it. So I went and I read for the job. It was in an evening, and I was handed some news copy. It was a national news minute that came off the AP wire, and I wasn't allowed to pre-read it. They wanted to see if I could read things cold, as they say. And I did. I was unbelievably nervous, and I got through it. And I got through it well enough that the station manager there, whose name was Jim Starr, he said, all right, let's give him a shot. So I came in and I trained for a few days. Gene Newgard was the name of the college professor. I think he also teaches at Iowa State now. And there was some other people there, too, that kind of took me under their wing. They're at KIFG in Iowa Falls, Iowa. Radio station still there. And also the folks that took me under their wing, as I said, they it mattered a lot. Thanks, Al. I hosted a morning show with Al for a while, and he never gave me that typical radio ego that I got from a lot of places. And if it wasn't for him, I'm not sure I would have continued in the industry. After finishing at Iowa Falls, I ended up getting a job at a station based out of Knoxville, Iowa. And my job was in Pella. So I did news and I did sports in Pella, and it was a crazy busy job. That particular station had quotas for news and sports that you had to reach every day. And it was a lot for a town pulling 5 news stories a day out of a town of 10,000 people. And it was not an easy thing to do, but it taught me how to buckle down and to understand that sometimes good enough has to be good enough, if that makes sense, because there just wasn't that much news to report on. And I cut my teeth there for about a year and got better at the sportscasting. That was going to be what my job was. I was going to be a sportscaster. And I talked with another friend that I was working with at the time at the station in Knoxville. He had left and gone to work for WHO in Des Moines. And he told me about a job that was opening up at KMA in Shenandoah. And it was, even though the title wasn't assistant sports director, that's kind of what it was. And I drove over after sending them my demo, and they wanted to come and meet me. And I met with Don Hansen and Lee Hughes. And for those of you familiar with KMA, probably remember those names because they were on the air there for decades. And I had a chance to sit down with them, and we just kind of went through an interview process. And I remember Lee saying that we're the big dogs on the block and we bark like it. I remember him saying that. And also, they offered me a job while I was right there. Now, I was dating someone at the time, and I didn't want to make a decision without talking to her about it. And so I told him, I said, well, I've got somebody in my life that I'd like to talk to about this first. And Lee's comment was, yep, you go back, you talk to her. And his exact words back to me, then get your ass back here and go to work. So that's what I did. And it was a great experience. I was there almost 3 years, and learning from Lee, learning from Don. Don Hansen was the most patient man that I've ever been around, the most understanding man. I had screwed something up while I was sitting there doing the midday shift, and it was syndicated programming that was on the air, and I had played something that I shouldn't have played. And I went over to his office and I just owned it. I said, I just messed things up pretty bad. And he looked at me and he said, are we on the air? And I said, yeah. He said, then you didn't mess up that bad. And Don is one of my favorite people that I ever had an opportunity to work with. So that was my start in radio. Ultimately, it led to some other stations. I did a couple of stints in Okoboji, and then ended up at a radio network based out of Omaha. And I would be on radio stations all across the country. And then after a couple of years, that sold and became part of an organization called Dial Global Radio Networks, and everything was merged in Denver. And I was offered a job there and moved out to Denver for a while doing radio, and then came back and decided that radio really wasn't for me anymore, and I was trying to get out of it, and started to look for other ways to be able to use my voice. Now, in order to pass the time and to make a little bit of money, I also knew how to paint. I mean, houses, not pictures. And I had a painting company, did a lot of apartment painting for a while, and that paid the bills, but really didn't feed the soul very much. And someone that I was connected to on social media said, well, why don't you think about podcasting? And I thought, well, that's just dumb. I'm not a teenage girl and I don't care about last night's rerun of Friends. What would I have to talk about on a podcast? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what podcasting was or what it could be. And eventually, the then leadership at the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce talked to me about it because I was doing some real estate videos and I was recording audiobooks, and they had an interest in doing a podcast and they wanted my help with it because they knew my background in media. And that was the first podcast that I ever hosted. And I professionally getting paid for it. We'll put it that way. I had another one called Success in Iowa that I wasn't getting paid for, but this was the first one that I was getting paid to do. And from there, we added a podcast for what was then the Glenwood Area Chamber of Commerce. It is now the Mills County Chamber. And we added some real estate podcast on the trades, which, by the way, we're still doing, Circle of Trades. And I began to see how similar podcasting was to radio. And it fed the soul in the same way for me. This is what I do. I put a microphone in front of me and I talk. To be honest, I do miss the days of playing music because I could talk for 60 seconds and then listen to 3 songs and talk for another 60 seconds. It's a lot easier than doing this and to just kind of rambling on. This is more like talk radio, which I never had a talk radio show. But as I said, it hits all of those same buttons inside of me that just kind of get me up in the morning and get me moving. Now, as a lot of you know, I was involved with the radio station launch in Council Bluffs, and I truly went into that thinking that this was going to be it for me, that was what I was going to do, and thinking that I was going to shift back into the industry and eventually I would retire doing it. But life had other ideas. And I'm not going to go into all of the reasons why behind it because it's all water under the bridge now and it doesn't serve much purpose. All that matters is that I realized that I'd made the correct decision the first time. So left that, dealt with a non-compete for a while, so I kind of crawled under a rock for close to a year. That's the reason why I had a non-compete that I was dealing with. And then after that was over with, we brought these shows back. And that's why in October of 2024, I launched Morning Coffee and decided that we're going to do a show similar to what I was doing there on the radio station in Council Bluffs, only I'm not going to play music. I'm going to interview people. I'm going to talk about the things that are going on in the community. I'm going to highlight some of I did a park series. We did a lot of things to talk about and promote Council Bluffs with this show. And it just started to feed me again. And because of that, we started getting sponsors and local businesses started to come on. The very first sponsor that I got was George Ivanoff at the Best Wrestler. He came out to be on my Success in Iowa, or actually on my Campfire Conversations podcast. That was one that I was doing. We had a limited run with that. And big thank you to the Sneckloff family at the Acres event venue, because they allowed me to come out and light a fire in their fire pit and shoot podcast episodes out there. And George came out and we did an episode, and I told him about my idea for this new show. And he said, "Can I sponsor that?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And he said, "Well, what are you charging for it?" And I said, "I don't have any idea. I hadn't even thought about it yet. Ultimately, I would want to make a living doing this, but I hadn't thought about sponsorships on it." So I gave it some thought. I quoted him a price, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And George was a sponsor on this show for the first year that we had it on. And I am thrilled to see what George Ivanoff is doing with The Best Wrestler now, that he stopped being a sponsor on this show because his focus was going much, much wider than just what he was doing in Council Bluffs. He has an international wrestling club now and is coaching students all across the world with his business. And it is impressive to have seen what that man has accomplished. And he was my very first sponsor here on Morning Coffee. And then we started talking to some other people, and more sponsors came on. Some that have been with me and have supported me regardless of what I've done. Travis Waldstein's one of them. You've seen him many times on this show. Travis is, he's kind of an icon around here. If you meet Travis, you just met somebody, because he's kind of larger than life, but boy, is he smart. And I encourage you to watch his Circle of Trades podcast. And I also encourage you that if you ever need any HVAC work done or plumbing work done, these are the guys that you want to get a hold of. And Cindy Schmader's another one. We already talked about her today. And Cindy has been a big, big supporter. Blake Hunter with his podcast, Real Estate with Berkshire Hathaway. There's been so many that have jumped on. We've probably had 40 different businesses over the Morning Coffee Show and now the Roots Show that we do. And that is because there's a need for what we're doing here in this area. Something that I like to say is we're kind of in a media desert. It's not the fault of the media that's here. It's just they don't have the staff, and they can't get out and cover things the way that they used to. So we are just throwing our hat into the mix. And that's why we have Bluff Sports Weekly hosted by Craig Carlson. It's why we have Still Serving Iowa Veterans with Darlene McMartin and Carlene Hall. And it's why we do this show. It's why we do Pottawatomie County Roots. It's why we do Mills County Roots. It's why we will probably add some new shows in the future. It's just we're all tapped for time now, so we need some new people to be able to do that. But it's because there are so many great stories to tell around our region, around in Southwest Iowa. Initially, when I started Morning Coffee, I thought it was going to be for all of Southwest Iowa, and I quickly learned that the region's too big for one show. We had to keep adding, and we're still adding. We're not done yet. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep adding to local stream media, which is now what this project is called. I got together and joined forces with Kyle Ranney with his company, Tail Slate Agency, doing videography marketing, and he also builds websites and CRMs and all of this. It just kind of made sense for us to go in together. And now, Kyle upped my game. And we're going to continue to up things. There's going to be some changes coming soon to this program, and it's going to be better because of the work that Kyle has done. So, it all has become kind of a community project. So circling back to the beginning of this, at the networking group that I was speaking to Wednesday night, there were some ladies there that I hadn't met before, but they knew who I was because they watched the show. And the community has responded very graciously to what it is that we're doing, and very positively to what it is that we're doing. And positive is the correct word, because that's what we want to focus on. We do not care that negative is happening. We care enough that we want to do something about it, but I'm not going to care enough that I'm going to be shining big spotlights on it so I can get clicks because of negative. That's a Jerry Springer type of podcasting, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on what positive is happening. I'm going to focus on the growth that we're seeing around town. I'm going to focus on the exciting things that are happening at Pace or down at River's Edge or the events on the 100 block or the different businesses that we have seen opening all across Council Bluffs. We're seeing growth, and we are seeing a town that is stepping out of the shadow and is saying, you know what? We're proud to be here, and we are tired of hiding it. And that I'm happy to be a part of. And I hope that the emails continue to come in and the phone continues to ring, people asking to be on the show. And they're saying, we'd like to be able to tell our story. That's why we're here. We want to be able to help you tell your stories. It's not about my voice. It's about being a conduit for other voices and to give them a platform to be able to tell their stories. Yeah, I'm pretty good at interviewing. And when I sit down across the table behind me from someone and I can put them at ease and let them know that they are next to a friend who's going to have their best interest at heart. And that is how I want things to be here. When you walk into the studios on Willow, you can feel it. There's a great energy in this place, and we want to be able to keep that. So, again, a huge thank you from me to you for all of the support that we have received so far. I hope that my ramble here hasn't gone on for too long. But I also hope that you continue to support the projects that we are bringing to you. And if you have stories that you want to hear about, please reach out, let me know, and we're going to see what we can do to try to help spread the word here of everything that is going on around Council Bluffs. Some of the things that are going on around Council Bluffs, including grabbing dinner at one of the great restaurants. And one of my favorites is the Mile Away in Council Bluffs, or north of town on Old Lincoln Highway. It's a family-run bar and grill. I was just out there for dinner the other night. They are your go-to for mouth-watering wings, unbeatable weekly specials, and a welcoming atmosphere that feels like home. I had their steak bites and fries last time I was out. They do have some really, really good wings. You can get a taco special on Wednesday. Their burger night is Thursday. They have daily lunch specials. You can even go out there for breakfast on Tuesday through Sunday mornings. It is the Mile Away, where great food and great people come together. And speaking of food, morning coffee supported by Bryce Taylor and GLI Insurance Group, serving Council Bluffs, Tabor, and Clarinda. What does that have to do with food? Well, Bryce launched the Council Bluffs Food Lovers Group. And what are they, about 14,000 members, maybe approaching 15 now? March in Iowa, and Bryce wants you to know this, we're kind of in that in-between season. It's not quite winter, it's not quite spring, but it is a good time to take 5 minutes and make sure your home, vehicles, and anything you're pulling out for warmer weather are properly covered. Bryce and the GLI team live and work right here in our communities. They're always happy to help you head into spring with confidence. GLI Insurance Group, local service, all seasons. Well, that's a little bit of my history, a little bit of what got me here. And again, you know, it seems like every time that I get out of radio, something pulls me back in. The joke that I say is, Glenn and Don were right. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That's the way it kind of has been for me in the radio industry. But now I'm doing something that I don't miss it because it's, as I said, it's hitting all the same buttons for me, and it just kind of feeds my soul the way radio used to. So thanks for coming along on the ride so far. And boy, I'm sure looking forward to the ride as it continues on. My name is Todd Studer, and we will see you back here Monday morning.